The 11 seconds. The voicemail was 11 seconds long. I know because I counted. Not once. 17 times. What he said that kept replaying in my head. It was the silence before he said it. That breath. Like he was giving me one last chance to stop him. Mother's voice came through, calm, steady, almost gentle. Don't come back. Yelling. Explanations. No fight. 30 years. Cries. That's the part people never understand. You expect tears when something ends. But when it's your own father cutting you out like you're a subscription he forgot he signed up for, you don't cry. Please. I was standing in my kitchen when it happened, Tuesday night, 9:14 p.m. The kettle was screaming on the stove. I let it scream. The phone was still in my hand. He had never sent a voicemail before. He barely texted. He was the kind of man who believed that if something mattered, you drove across town and said it to someone's face. This he delivered like a bank notice. Short final, no return address. I replayed it. Back where? House. The family. Did for the second part for the because. There wasn't one. Moved. Not archived. Moved. The group name had changed too. It used to be the Ramen Homes. Now it was simply family. That's when the kettle finally ran dry and started burning. I turned off the stove. Sat down at the table. And instead of calling him back, I opened my laptops. Because here's something my father forgot. You can tell your daughter not to come back. But you can't remove her name from paperwork that quickly. I work in financial compliance. Risk audits, asset oversight, fraud detection. I spot cracks in foundations for a living. And as I sat there in my kitchen, listening to my own heartbeat, I realized something terrifying. If I didn't belong to the family anymore, then neither did my money. For the past 5 years, I had been the quiet engine behind everything. The mortgage on the house. My father's medical bills after his back surgery. My younger brother's failed business attempt. The renovation loans. The trust my grandmother left, the one I managed. I wasn't just their daughter. The first time I realized I was replaceable. The first time my brother asked me to sign something for him. I was 22. It was just a form. That's what he said. I almost did. Everything would have belonged to him 5 years ago. Become the family bank overnight. You become it the first time you fix a problem no one thanks you for. Then you fix the next one. And the next. Comes your personality. Family, I wasn't the favorite. I was the fallback plans. Sami was the dreamer. The sensitive one. The misunderstood one. When he failed, it was life is hard. When I succeeded, it was good, now we have options. I didn't see it as imbalance. I saw it as responsibility. That's the trap. And after his second failed business, over to my apartment. Didn't call first. Just showed up. That should have been my first warning. I brought coffee. He sat at my kitchen table, smiling too calmly. I found a way to consolidate the house loan, he said. We didn't even own a house yet. That's how early this started. It'll make things easier later, but they need a co-applicant with strong credit. Did the paper toward me. I read fast, I always read fast. But not fast enough. It wasn't a consolidation form. It was a personal guarantee. Unlimited liability. If his business defaulted, I'd be responsible. Not capped. Everything. Up. He didn't look nervous. He looked confident. Loved him. You tell me what this really is, I asked. He shrugged. That was the first time I felt something cold toward him. Not anger. He wasn't reckless. Strategic. He just preferred I didn't notice. I didn't sign it. He didn't argue. And until years later. Always act like you're above us. Above us. Not responsible. Of. Dangerous. Boundaries were interpreted as betrayal. When Grandma made me trustee of her modest estate, that tension deepened. It wasn't about the money. It was about controls. Grandma had seen something. She had told me once quietly while we were alone. You're the only one who reads the fine print. At the time, it felt like praise. Now I know it was a warning. The trust wasn't huge. But it was leverage. Shifts power. Asked for $20,000 2 years later. For expansion. He rolled his eyes. No. Didn't. Because I had already seen what he tried to slide across my kitchen table once. Knew I remembered. That's not to explain. Something that confirmed this had never just been about money. It was about position. And I was about to learn exactly who in that house thought I was expendable. The call I wasn't supposed to hear. When my father finally called me back, he didn't start with, "I'm sorry." He didn't ask how I was. He said, "Brother." Not to us. To your brother. I had refused to see for years. Never the child they protected. I was the child they deployed. It was Thursday evening. 48 hours after the refinance was frozen. 48 hours of missed calls stacking up like debt notifications. I let it ring twice before answering. Not to be cruel. Hello. Voice was tight. Not angry. Brother says you contacted the bank. Not a. Direct accusation. Yes, I said, I reported a forged signature. Silence. 5. You didn't have to escalate it. Escalate. For a misunderstanding. I said slowly, someone signed my name to remove me from the deed. Pause. Then the sentence that split something open inside me. We were going to tell you. We. Tell me. I stood up without realizing it. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. You were going to tell me after you removed me from property I've been paying for. It wasn't removal, he said quickly, it was restructuring. Structuring. As if I were a column in a spreadsheet. A variable to optimize. And then he said the thing that confirmed everything. You've been distant, you don't visit, you don't call as much. We thought maybe it was time to simplify things. Simplify. I laughed. Mean too. It just came out. Hailed hard. You're making this dramatic. No. Which was worse? I asked. Mine went still. I knew your brother was handling the paperwork. That wasn't an answer. Did you know he signed my name? Another pause. I assumed you had agreed. Assumed. So either he didn't ask, or he didn't want the answer. And then came the part that hurt more than the forgery. We were trying to protect the house, he said. From what? There it was. Wasn't needed. Me out because they were afraid I would leave first. The truth rearranged itself in my head. The voicemail wasn't exile. The room where stories collapse. There's a specific kind of silence that only exists in conference rooms. Emotional silence. It's legal silence. Sentence could cost someone everything. Walked into that room. My brother was already crying. Before anyone had said a word. That's when I knew he was preparing a performance. The meeting was set for Friday. 2:00 p.m. Glass walls. Tables. 6 chairs. Folded. The stared at the table. Sami avoided my eyes. His lawyer sat beside him. My lawyer sat beside me. No one looked like a family. We looked like a case. We're here to resolve financial disputes regarding the property and the trust. Financial disputes. As if this were a billing error. I slid my folder forward. I'll start, I said. I had rehearsed nothing. Truth doesn't need choreography. First document. 5 years. Total $68,400. I didn't look at them while they read. I looked at the tables. Mother's breathing changed. My father swallowed. Sami shifted in his chair. Second document. My side signatures. Mine. My lawyer spoke calmly. The signature discrepancy is obvious. Additionally, login records show submission from Mr. Rahman's personal device. His lawyer cleared his throat. My client believed he had verbal authorization. That word again. Do you have proof of that authorization? My lawyer asked. Because it never existed. Came the moment. I hadn't planned to use it. But the room felt ready. I placed a small recorder on the table. I'd like to play something. Sami went pale. Not dramatic. His voice. Calm. Need you off the trust and off the deed, then everything gets easier. Yeah. The recording ended. One moved. My father stared at his hands. My mother looked at Sami. Really looked at him. What's this? She whispered. Sami's lips trembled. It's out of context. That's always the defense when context is the house without me. Make. Louder than the voicemail. No notification sound. No dramatic confrontation. Just silence. Months, $1,900 left my account before I even woke up. Mornings. It didn't. The house held its breath. You don't realize how much power you've been carrying until you put it down. The automatic transfer had always felt normal. Routine. Now my bank balance sat untouched. Still, I stared at it longer than I should have. Because I regretted it. Because I was waiting for guilt. It didn't come. Unfamiliar. Old. This was tight in a way I'd never heard before. They sent a notice. Of course they did. Structure built on borrowed strength. Structure shifts. You have 60 days, I said evenly. That's not enough time. It was enough time to remove me from the deed. Silence. Because timelines only feel urgent when they don't favor you. My mother called next. Not angry. Scared. Insurance is lapsing, she said quietly. For years I had covered their health coverage too. They never knew how much it cost. They never asked. What I had been paying. How did it get so expensive, she asked. I almost answered. Almost slipped into explanation mode. Instead, I said, not of insurance. Dependence. Sami didn't call. He sent a message instead. A single line. Impossible. Free. Adulthood came with a warranty. I typed a response. Typed another. Did that too. Finally, I sent 3 words. I'm not responsible. And for the first time in my life, that sentence didn't feel cruel. It felt accurate. By the end of the second week, the house felt different. I know because my mother told me. It feels unsettled, she said. Like the walls were aware. Like something structural had shifted. She didn't say my name. But I heard it in the gaps. I had been the quiet reinforcement beam. Remove the beam. Starts making noises. Friends began calling them. Relatives started asking questions. Because financial instability spreads faster than gossip. And suddenly the narrative changed. It wasn't. It became. Truth travels slower than lies. But when it arrives, the knock at 10:17 p.m. The knock wasn't loud. It was controlled. Pause. Or they're welcome. Through the peepholes. And for the first time in my life, I saw my brother looking uncertain. I didn't open the door immediately. Not out of fear. I wanted to choose this interaction. All into it. When I finally unlocked it, he didn't step inside. He stayed in the hallway. Like he wasn't sure the space belonged to him anymore. What do you want? I asked. Not hostile. He swallowed. Messed up. That was new. No context. He looked thinner. Emotionally. Its mask was gone. There were no tears ready. No dramatic posture. Just discomfort. Oh. He nodded. There it was. You. But me. The hierarchy again. Consequences feel unfair when you're not used to them. You forged my name, I said calmly. He flinched. That sentence stunned me. Understand what? Stared at him. I wasn't leaving. Sending extra money, you questioned the trust, you asked for receipts. That's not abandonment. Boundaries. He ran a hand through his hair. You were changing. The accusation disguised as observation. Growing up, I replied. No, he said quietly. You were becoming separate. Separate. Equaled betrayal. Dependence equaled rejection. And I finally saw the core of it. He hadn't forged my signature for greed. He forged it out of fear. Fear that if I had powers, he wouldn't. Said. He laughed once. Bend. Not when bending costs ownership. It's something that cracked the last illusion. Dad knew I was handling it. Handling. Silence. I had my answer. But he also didn't check. Checking the call I almost ignored. When my father's name lit up on my phone 3 months later, I almost didn't answer. Not because I was angry. Because I was stable. And stability is fragile when it's new. The last time he called, it was about money. This time, authority. Sounded like age. I let it ring once. I answered. Those actions or strategy. Softly. Used to when I was small. For a second my chest tightened. Memory is dangerous like that. I'm at the hospital, he said. Everything inside me paused. Not panic. Just a stillness. Happened. Nothing serious, he replied quickly. Which is what people say when it feels serious to them. Blood pressure, dizziness, they're keeping me overnight. Overnight. They reduce even the loudest men into patients. Do you need anything? I asked. The question surprised me. Not because I didn't care. Because it came naturally. No, he said, then after a pause. I just thought you should know. That sentence carried weight. Not it. Not it. Just information. Crisis as leverage. Simply informing me. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed. The silence felt different from before. Before, silence meant distance. Now it meant choice. Or I could not. Guilt-driven reflex. No obligation script. Just decision. Responsibility ever had. Prove theirs. Not quickly. Just steadily. Smaller. Hospitals do that. They remove context. No house. No authority. Monitors. At me like he wasn't sure I would show up. I didn't think you'd come, he admitted. I didn't think I would either, I said. We both almost smiled.
The offer 2 weeks after the hospital visit, my father sent me a document, not a request, not a plea, a proposal, subject line, fairness. For years, fairness had meant sacrifice. Now it was attached to a PDF. I opened it slowly. It wasn't complicated. It was an official repayment plan. Structured, legal, signed. He had calculated every mortgage payment I had made, every transfer, every insurance premium, total reimbursement amount, installments over 5 years, with interest. I stared at the number, not because I expected it, because I didn't. He called 10 minutes later. I can't give it all at once, he said. I don't expect you to, I replied. I should have done this earlier. Yes, he should have. But regret works on its own timeline. I'm not trying to buy you back, he added carefully. That sentence mattered, because money had always been the glue. And glue looks a lot like love when you're young. I know, I said, and I did. This wasn't leverage, it was correction, late, but real. Then he said something that surprised me even more. I removed your brother from handling anything financial. That pause carried history. For good? For good. There was no anger in his voice, just resolve. Trust, once cracked, doesn't reseal easily. Sammy called me later that evening, not defensive, not dramatic. I heard about the repayment, he said. Yes, I told him to do it. That caught me off guard. You did? I owed you that. Owed. The language had changed. He wasn't framing it as family expectation anymore. He was framing it as debt. Clear, defined, accountable. I don't need revenge, I said. I know, he replied. And that's why I was wrong. There it was. Recognition without performance. No tears, no manipulation, just awareness. Growth is quiet. It doesn't beg for applause. But here's the part no one talks about. When people finally do the right thing, you don't always feel relief. You feel disoriented. Because your identity had adapted to being the strong one, the stabilizer, the self-sufficient one. If they were now responsible, who was I? The first repayment installment arrived the following month. I didn't celebrate. I transferred half into savings. Half into something I had postponed for years. Therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I had carried too much quietly. And quiet weight leaves marks. During one session, my therapist asked me something simple. What would happen if you allowed them to exist without needing to rescue them? The question stayed with me for days, because I didn't know who I was without rescuing. That had been my role, my identity, my leverage, my worth. 3 months passed, payments continued, no drama, no sudden emergencies, no manipulation. Distance remained, but it wasn't hostile, it was measured, and for the first time, I wasn't waiting for something to collapse. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, my mother invited me to dinner, not to discuss money, not to negotiate anything, just dinner. And that invitation felt more dangerous than any forged document. Because forgiveness is harder than boundaries, and I had to decide, was I protecting myself from harm or from vulnerability? The answer would define the ending of this story.
The dinner tables. restaurant for 11 minutes. And off. Hands on the steering wheel. Not because I was afraid of them. Because I was afraid of who I might become in that room. Would I shrink? Would I automatically reach for the bills? Some habits don't die. They wait. That house belonged to another version of us. This was a small restaurant near their apartment. Neutral ground. First. Dramatically. Just instinctively. She hugged me. Bigger than usual. No performance in it. Just relief. Sami gave a small half smile. One mentioned the trust. Or the house. We ordered food like a normal family. And that felt almost surreal. Because normal used to be built on denials. Now it was built on acknowledgement. That's heavier. Halfway through dinner, the check came. Landed in the center of the table. Old reflex flickered in my fingers. For years, I would have grabbed it without thinking. Before anyone could object. Before anyone could offer. This time, my father reached for it. No eye contact, seeking approval. Just action. But it did. It's demonstrated. Then my mother said something unexpected. We didn't know how much pressure you were under. I looked at her. Gently. Nodded. That's true. The voicemail replayed. I hadn't deleted it. 11 seconds. Exhale. Come back. For months it was proof. Proof of betrayal. Proof that I was disposable. Doesn't rewrite history. It rewrites interpretation. And one night alone in my apartment, I pressed play again. His voice sounded different now. Not because it changed. Because I had. Pride. But I no longer heard powers. Sentence had once frozen me. Now it felt small. Because it was spoken from panic. Not authority. He didn't mean don't exist. Don't outgrow us. Don't separate. Trolls. Done exactly that. Not out of revenge. The truth is, the trust didn't destroy my family. Forgiveness didn't save it. What saved it slowly was accountability. From them. Because I had to admit something too. Participated in the pattern. I liked being needed. It gave me importance. Values. Generosity. Stepped away, I didn't just remove money. I removed the identity that kept me central. That was uncomfortable. For all of us. The sent another message. Financial. Not logistical. The three of them at the new apartment. A place. Simpler furniture. But lighter somehow. Learnings. No long speech. One word. Learning. Of the oceans. Grey. Quiet. Me too. Healing isn't dramatic. It's repetitive. Letting silence exist without filling it with money. It's visiting because you want to.